The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the massive circular table. Holographic displays showed star charts, fleet movements, and casualty reports from the ongoing war with the Devourers, a ruthless alien race that consumed entire worlds for resources. Commander Zara Chen stood at the podium, her weathered hands gripping the edges as she faced the assembled aliens. At 62, she had seen more battles than most beings lived years, and her gray hair was pulled back in a tight military bun that spoke of decades of discipline. Honorable representatives, Chen began, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Humanity requests permission to deploy our reserve weapon system against the Devourer fleet currently advancing on the Kepler 442 system. A ripple of what could only be described as alien laughter echoed through the chamber. The Zilithian ambassador, a tall crystalline being whose body refracted light in prismatic patterns, spoke first. Commander Chen, with all due respect to your species' courage in battle, we have reviewed your military archives. Your reserve weapon appears to be a collection of chemical explosive devices from your pre-spaceflight era. Surely you jest? The Corvan representative, resembling a massive insectoid with iridescent wings, clicked its mandibles in what Chen had learned was their equivalent of amused disbelief. These nuclear weapons, you speak of our children's toys, produce more energy output than your most powerful specimens. The Devourer ship's shields can withstand plasma cannons that dwarf your atomic explosions. Chen's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. She had expected this reaction. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for only 15 years, ever since first contact had dragged them into a universe far more advanced than they had imagined. Their technology was primitive compared to species that had been traveling the stars for millennia. I understand your skepticism, Chen replied, her voice steady. But I assure you, these weapons have capabilities beyond their apparent simplicity. The Aquarian delegate, whose translucent blue form shifted like living water, gurgled what the translation matrix rendered as polite condescension. Commander, your nuclear weapons release energy through atomic fission and fusion. Our basic shield generators can absorb and redirect such elementary energy releases. The Devourer's defensive systems are 10,000 times more sophisticated than ours. A murmur of agreement swept through the chamber. The Felixian ambassador, cat-like with silver fur and golden eyes, leaned forward. Perhaps humanity should focus on evacuation protocols instead of attempting to engage military solutions beyond their technological capacity. Chen felt heat rise in her cheeks, but forced herself to remain calm. Representatives, I am not requesting permission to use conventional nuclear weapons. I am speaking of our reserve arsenal weapons that have been sealed and classified since our integration into galactic society. The Thorian delegate, a being of living stone with crystals embedded in its rocky surface, rumbled with what might have been curiosity. What classification of nuclear device could possibly— Cobalt bombs? Chen interrupted, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. Salted nuclear weapons designed with specific isotopic compositions. Hydrogen bombs wrapped in cobalt-59 shells. Silence fell over the chamber as several representatives consulted their databanks. The Zilithian's crystalline form flickered with rapid light patterns, their version of rapid thinking. Commander, the Zilithian said slowly, our records indicate these weapons were theoretical concepts abandoned by your species due to their extreme nature. Not abandoned, Chen corrected. Sealed away, and hoped to never be necessary. But they were built. 12 of them, to be precise. Each one capable of producing radioactive fallout with a half-life of 5 years, covering planetary-sized areas. The Corvan representative's wings buzzed anxiously. Even if such weapons exist, their radiation output would be negligible to Devourer technology. They have conquered irradiated worlds before, Chen smiled grimly. You're thinking about this wrong. You're considering them as conventional weapons meant to destroy through immediate explosive force or standard radiation. But cobalt bombs aren't designed to kill quickly. She activated her personal holoprojector, displaying a three-dimensional model of atomic structure. When a cobalt-59 nucleus absorbs a neutron from nuclear fission, it becomes cobalt-60, which decays by releasing gamma radiation. But here's what makes these weapons special. The gamma rays they produce have a very specific energy signature. The display shifted to show wavelength patterns and energy frequencies. Several alien representatives leaned forward, their various optical organs focusing intently on the data. The gamma radiation from cobalt-60 decay occurs at exactly 1.17 and 1.33 mega-electron volts, Chen continued. These energy levels create a harmonic resonance with quantum field fluctuations in most exotic matter compositions. Chen continued, to 19.5-10, the chamber erupted in surprised chittering, crystalline chiming, and various alien sounds of shock. The Aquarian delegate's form rippled violently. Impossible, the Thorian rumbled. Quantum field resonance requires precise manipulation of space-time geometry. Primitive nuclear weapons cannot. They can't intentionally, Chen agreed. But sometimes the universe has a sense of irony. When we first tested cobalt bombs in our solar system's asteroid belt 70 years ago, we noticed some unusual readings. Asteroids with high concentrations of exotic matter began experiencing structural breakdown when exposed to the specific gamma frequencies. The Phylixian ambassador's golden eyes widened. The Devourer ships. Their hulls are composed primarily of harvested exotic matter from consumed worlds. Chen nodded. Exactly. Their shields, their weapons, their faster-than-light drives, all dependent on exotic matter matrices that remain stable under normal conditions, but become increasingly unstable when exposed to sustained cobalt-60 gamma radiation. The Zilithian's light patterns flickered rapidly. How long would this effect take to manifest? Our calculations suggest approximately 6 hours of continuous exposure would begin to compromise their hull integrity, Chen replied. 12 hours would likely cause cascade failures in their primary systems. 24 hours. She let the implication hang in the air. The Corvon representative's mandibles clicked nervously. But the radioactive contamination, any world touched by such weapons, would be uninhabitable for years. The Kepler 442 system is already lost, Chen said quietly. The Devourers will strip mine the planets bare within days of arrival. At least this way, we deny them the resources and buy time for evacuation of neighboring systems. The chamber fell silent again as each representative processed the implications. The Devourer fleet was less than 48 hours from reaching Kepler 442, where 3 billion civilians waited in underground shelters, hoping for rescue that would never come in time. The Aquarian delegate spoke first. This is still theoretical. You have no guarantee these weapons will perform as predicted. Chen's expression hardened. Then let me share something that is not theoretical. 3 months ago, a Devourer scout ship crashed on Europa. When our salvage teams examined the wreckage, they found exotic matter conduits throughout the ship's structure. We exposed small samples to cobalt-60 sources. Another hologram appeared, showing twisted, degraded metal structures. This is what happened to their hull material after 18 hours of low-level gamma exposure. The exotic matter lattice completely collapsed. The representatives stared at the images of the dissolved alien metal, its once perfect crystalline structure reduced to useless gray powder. The Thorian delegate's crystals glowed brighter. Why was this information not shared with the Council previously? Because we hoped we would never need to use it, Chen replied. Cobalt bombs represent everything we are trying to leave behind as a species. They are weapons of last resort, designed not just to kill, but to make entire regions of space uninhabitable. They are instruments of mutual destruction. The Phylixian ambassador's tail twitched nervously. If these weapons are deployed and successful, the radiation signature will be detectable across dozens of light years. Every species in the galaxy will know that humans possess weapons capable of compromising exotic matter technology. Yes, Chen said simply. And every species will also know that humans are willing to sacrifice entire star systems to stop the Devourers. The political implications are significant. The Zilithian's form dimmed thoughtfully. You are asking us to approve not just the deployment of these weapons, but the revelation that humanity possesses technology that could theoretically threaten any ship or station built with exotic matter components. Chen nodded. I am asking you to trust that humanity will use these weapons only against the Devourers, and only when no other option exists. I am asking you to believe that we understand the responsibility we are requesting. The Corvan representative's wings folded tightly against its body. And if we refuse permission? Chen's voice grew quiet, but every being in the chamber heard her clearly. Then I will return to Earth, and humanity will withdraw from the Galactic Council. We will not watch 3 billion innocent civilians die when we have the means to save them, regardless of political consequences. The threat hung in the air like a physical presence. Humanity might be technologically primitive compared to other Council species, but their soldiers had proven invaluable in ground combat against Devourer forces. Their loss would be significant. More importantly, the revelation that humans had kept secret weapons hidden from the Council raised uncomfortable questions about what else they might be concealing. The Aquarian delegate rippled with agitation. You are asking us to make a decision that could fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy. I am asking you to make a decision that could save 3 billion lives and stop the Devourer advance in this sector, Chen corrected. Everything else is secondary. The Thorian rumbled deeply, a sound like grinding stone. How long do we have to decide? Chen checked her chronometer. The Devourer fleet will reach Kepler 442 inches, 37 hours. Our ships need at least 12 hours to reach the deployment zone and prepare the weapons, so you have approximately 24 hours to reach a consensus. The Zilithian's crystalline form brightened. And if the weapons fail? If your theory about exotic matter degradation proves incorrect? Chen's smile was grim and determined. Then humanity will have revealed our last secret weapon for nothing, and 3 billion people will die anyway. But at least we will have tried everything in our power to save them. The representatives began murmuring among themselves in their various languages and communication methods. Chen remained at the podium, watching the political calculations play out in real time across alien faces and forms. She thought about the sealed bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, where 12 cobalt bombs waited in climate-controlled storage, their atomic hearts cold and patient. She thought about the Devourer fleet racing toward innocent civilians. Most of all, she thought about whether humanity was ready for the galaxy to know just how dangerous they could be when pressed to the edge of desperation. The debate was just beginning, and Chen knew that whatever decision emerged from this chamber would change everything, not just for the war against the Devourers, but for humanity's place among the stars. The debate had raged for 18 hours straight. Commander Chen sat in her quarters aboard the diplomatic station, staring out at the swirling nebula that painted the void in shades of purple and gold. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she held the cup anyway, finding comfort in its familiar weight. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Chen activated the holographic display and saw the weathered face of Admiral Sarah Martinez, head of Earth's Combined Fleet Command. Zara, what's your assessment? Martinez asked, without preamble. The woman had never been one for pleasantries, especially during wartime. They're scared, Chen replied honestly. Not of the Devourers, they've been fighting this war for 3 years. They're scared of us. Martinez leaned back in her chair, her dark eyes thoughtful. Because of the cobalt bombs? Because of what the cobalt bombs represent, Chen corrected. We've been the junior partners in this alliance since first contact. Primitive humans with chemical rockets and gunpowder weapons, grateful to be included in galactic civilization. Now they're learning we've been sitting on technology that could threaten their most advanced ships. The Admiral's expression grew grim. How are you reading the Council's mood? Chen sipped her cold coffee and grimaced. Split. The Thorians and Phylexians are pushing for approval. They've lost the most colonies to the Devourers, and they're desperate for any advantage. The Aquarians and Corvans are concerned about the precedent. The Zilithians are trying to find a compromise that doesn't exist. And the others? The Mantis Collective is staying neutral, as usual. The Crystal Singers are consulting their historical archives to see if there's precedent for this kind of decision. The remaining 4 species are waiting to see which way the wind blows before committing. Martinez nodded slowly. The Joint Chiefs are breathing down my neck. If the Council refuses permission, they want to know if you're serious about the withdrawal threat. Chen met her Admiral's gaze steadily. Completely serious. Sarah, I've seen the intelligence reports from Kepler 442. 3 billion civilians. Mostly families with children. The devourers won't just kill them, they'll process them for biomass. I won't stand by and watch that happen when we have weapons that might save them. Even if it means humanity becomes a pariah among galactic civilizations? Even then. Chen's voice was steel. Better to be feared and alive than loved and complicit in genocide. Before Martinez could respond, another chime announced an urgent communication. The Admiral's image was replaced by that of Dr. Emily Watson, Earth's chief xenotechnology specialist. "Commander, I need to brief you on something critical," Watson said, her usually calm demeanor showing cracks of excitement and worry. "We've been analyzing the data from the Europa crash site more thoroughly." Chen straightened. "What did you find?" Watson's image split to show complex molecular diagrams. The exotic matter in devourer ships isn't just susceptible to cobalt-60 gamma radiation, it's catastrophically vulnerable. When we exposed larger samples to sustained gamma bombardment, we discovered that the degradation creates a chain reaction. Our reasoned. What kind of chain reaction? The exotic matter doesn't just break down, it releases stored quantum energy as it collapses. A single devourer battleship contains enough exotic matter to power a small star. If their entire hull matrix destabilizes simultaneously, Chen felt her blood run cold. "You're talking about a quantum cascade explosion." "Potentially, yes. Our models suggest a complete hull collapse could release energy equivalent to a supernova in a localized area. It would destroy everything within several light minutes of the affected ship." The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. "Doctor, the Devourer fleet has over 200 ships. If they're traveling in close formation, the chain reaction could propagate from ship to ship." Watson finished. "Commander, we're not talking about disabling their fleet anymore. We're talking about creating the largest artificial explosion in recorded galactic history." Chen sank into her chair, mind racing. This changed everything. The cobalt bombs weren't just weapons of last resort, they were potential instruments of cosmic destruction. "How confident are you in these calculations?" she asked. Watson's expression was troubled. 60%, maybe 70. The quantum mechanics involved are at the edge of our understanding. But Commander, if we're right, the explosion would be visible from neighboring galaxies. Another chime interrupted them. This time, it was the Galactic Council's chief administrator, the ancient Zilithian known as Crystal, born in starlight, whose translucent form seemed to contain entire galaxies within its faceted surface. "Commander Chen." The being spoke with harmonics that the translation matrix rendered as urgent formality. "The Council requires your immediate presence. The debate has reached a critical juncture." Chen stood, her military bearing automatically asserting itself. "I'll be right there." As the communications ended, Chen quickly donned her dress uniform and made her way to the council chamber. The corridors of the diplomatic station buzzed with activity as representative staff members hurried between meetings, their faces showing the strain of the prolonged debate. When Chen entered the chamber, she immediately sensed the change in atmosphere. The earlier dismissive mockery had been replaced by tense uncertainty. Representatives clustered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones that suggested momentous decisions were being weighed. Crystal, born in starlight, gestured for Chen to approach the central podium. "Commander, new information has come to light that requires clarification. Our scientific analysis team has confirmed your data regarding exotic matter vulnerability to gamma radiation." Chen nodded. "I'm not surprised. The physics are sound. However," the Aquarian delegate interjected, its watery form rippling with agitation, "they have also calculated potential secondary effects that you failed to mention in your initial presentation." Chen felt the weight of every alien gaze in the chamber. "I assume you're referring to the possibility of quantum cascade reactions." A collective intake of breath, or the alien equivalent, swept through the room. The Corvin representative's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "You knew," the insectoid being said accusingly. "You knew these weapons could potentially destroy the entire Devourer fleet in a catastrophic explosion, and you did not share this information." Chen squared her shoulders. I suspected. We discovered the possibility only hours ago through additional testing. The data was inconclusive. The Phylixian ambassador's tail lashed angrily. Inconclusive? Our analysis suggests a 73% probability of cascade failure if multiple Devourer ships are exposed simultaneously. Which brings us to a fascinating question. The Thorian rumbled. Crystals glowing with what Chen had learned indicated deep thought. Was humanity's failure to mention this possibility an oversight or a deliberate omission? Chen met the Livingstone being's gaze directly. If you're asking whether humans are capable of keeping critical information secret when it serves our purposes, the answer is yes. If you're asking whether we would deliberately conceal information that affects the survival of galactic civilization, the answer is no. Yet you concealed these weapons themselves for 15 years. Crystal born in starlight observed. Because we hoped never to use them, Chen replied. And because we knew that revealing their existence would create exactly the kind of political crisis we're experiencing now. The chamber fell silent as representatives processed this admission. The weight of unspoken implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. The Mantis Collective's representative, a towering being with crystalline wings and compound eyes, finally spoke. Commander, your species has demonstrated remarkable skill at concealing strategic capabilities. What other secrets does humanity maintain? Chen smiled grimly. Representative, if I answered that question honestly, we would no longer be secrets. But I will say this. Every species in this chamber has capabilities they haven't fully shared with the Council. The difference is that our hidden capabilities are now necessary to save lives. The Corvan representative's wings buzzed anxiously. But at what cost? If these weapons create the cascade effect your scientists predict, the explosion will render the entire Kepler 442 system uninhabitable for millennia. The gravitational disruption alone could destabilize neighboring star systems. As opposed to the Devourers consuming every world in the sector over the next 5 years, Chen countered. Representatives, we are facing an existential threat. The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't retreat. And they don't show mercy. They exist to consume. Every world they take makes them stronger, and us weaker. The Aquarian delegate's form pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. You speak of last resort measures, but deployment of these weapons would announce to the galaxy that humanity possesses the capability to destroy entire fleets through exotic matter cascade reactions. Every species here uses exotic matter technology. Chen felt the full weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. Yes, it would. Are you prepared for the political consequences of that revelation? Crystal born in starlight asked. Chen looked around the chamber at beings from 12 different worlds, each representing civilizations that had existed for millennia before humans had even discovered fire. They had welcomed humanity into galactic society, shared their knowledge, and fought beside human soldiers against the Devourer threat. Now those same beings were learning that their primitive human allies possessed weapons that could potentially threaten any ship or station in the galaxy. Representative, Chen said quietly, 3 billion people are going to die in less than 18 hours unless we act. I am prepared for any political consequence that prevents that outcome. The Zilithian's crystalline form flickered with rapid light patterns, deep calculation and moral struggle made visible. And if the cascade effect destroys our own evacuation fleets in neighboring systems? Chen felt ice form in her stomach. What evacuation fleets? The ones carrying refugees from the outer colonies, the Phylixian ambassador said grimly. 14 ships, containing nearly 50,000 civilians from worlds already evacuated ahead of the Devourer advance. They're currently in the Kepler 441 system, 2 light hours from the projected battle zone. The revelation hit Chen like a physical blow. She had been so focused on the 3 billion civilians on the Kepler 442 worlds that she hadn't considered other ships in the area. How close is too close? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Unknown, Crystal born in starlight admitted. We are discussing weapons effects that have never been tested on this scale. Our best estimates suggest the cascade reaction could propagate across several light hours if conditions are optimal. Chen closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of impossible choices. Save 3 billion people by potentially killing 50,000 others. deploy weapons that could eliminate the Devourer threat in this sector, while simultaneously announcing humanity's dangerous capabilities to the galaxy. When she opened her eyes, every being in the chamber was watching her with expressions that ranged from sympathy to accusation to fear. "How long do the evacuation fleets need to reach minimum safe distance?" she asked. 12 hours, the Aquarian replied. "But moving them will alert the Devourers to their presence. Currently, they're hidden in the asteroid field and running silent." Chen felt the trap closing around them. Moving the evacuation ships would expose them to Devourer attack. Leaving them in place risked killing them with humanity's own weapons, and every hour they delayed meant the Devourer fleet got closer to Kepler 442. "There is another consideration," the Thorian rumbled ominously. "If these cobalt bombs can trigger cascade reactions in Devourer ships, what prevents the Devourers from developing countermeasures once they observe the effect?" Chen had been dreading this question. Nothing. Once deployed, the effectiveness window for this tactic would be extremely limited. "So you are asking us to approve a weapon that will work exactly once," Crystal born in Starlight summarized. "After which, the Devourers will adapt their technology to resist gamma radiation, and humanity will have revealed a strategic capability for a single tactical victory." "Representatives," Chen said, her voice growing stronger. "Sometimes the right choice isn't the smart choice. Sometimes it's just the choice that lets you sleep at night knowing you did everything possible to save innocent lives." She looked each alien representative in the eye, or the equivalent optical organs. "I'm not asking you to approve these weapons because they're strategically wise. I'm asking you to approve them because 3 billion people are depending on us to try everything we can, even if it's dangerous and stupid and politically disastrous." The chamber fell silent again. But this time, the silence felt different. Less hostile, more contemplative. Finally, the Mantis Collective representative spoke. "Commander, your species continues to surprise us. Most civilizations develop wisdom before they develop the capability for mass destruction. Humans appear to have developed conscience instead." Chen wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an insult, but she sensed it might be the key to whatever decision was coming. "Representatives," she said quietly, "the vote needs to happen now. Every minute we delay increases the risk to both the evacuation fleets and the civilians we're trying to save." Crystal born in Starlight's form brightened. "Very well. The Galactic Council will now vote on Resolution 847 Delta. Authorization for deployment of classified human weapons against Devourer Fleet Designation Omega-7. As the voting procedures began, Chen felt time itself pressing down on her like a physical weight. In a few hours, the galaxy would learn just how dangerous humans could be when they had nothing left to lose. The question was whether anyone would survive long enough to regret that lesson. The vote had been closer than Chen expected. 7 species in favor, 4 against, 1 abstention. The Mantis Collective's abstention had been the deciding factor. Their refusal to vote against the measure had provided the narrow margin needed for approval. Now, 6 hours later, Chen stood on the bridge of the UHES Determination, humanity's newest stealth frigate, watching the tactical display that showed the approaching Devourer fleet. 237 ships of various sizes, all constructed from the exotic matter they had harvested from consumed worlds. Captain Maria Santos, a veteran of the Battle of Proxima Station, approached with a grim expression. "Commander, the payload is secured and ready for deployment. Engineering reports all systems nominal." Chen nodded, her eyes never leaving the display. "Any word from the evacuation fleets?" "They've reached the minimum safe distance according to our best estimates," Santos replied. "But Commander, best estimates is all we have. We're entering uncharted territory." Through the transparent aluminum viewport, Chen could see the other ships in their small task force. 3 human destroyers, 2 Felixian cruisers, and a massive Thorian battleship, all volunteers who had chosen to stay and witness the deployment despite the risks. "Signal from the Thorian vessel Granite Heart," the communications officer announced. "They're requesting final confirmation of target coordinates." Chen activated her command interface, her fingers dancing over holographic controls that displayed targeting data. The Devourer fleet was still 8 hours from Kepler 442, but they had already begun their advanced bombardment of the outer defense platforms. Confirmed. Target coordinates transmitted to all ships. Begin final approach to deployment position. As the small fleet moved into position, Chen reflected on the events that had led to this moment. The Council's approval had come with conditions the weapons would be deployed under joint command, with representatives from 3 species aboard each human ship to ensure proper protocols were followed. Dr. Watson's voice crackled over the intercom from the ship's science bay. "Commander, I'm getting some unusual readings from the Devourer fleet's formation." "Specify," Chen replied. "They're not maintaining their usual tight formation. The ships are spreading out, creating gaps of several thousand kilometers between vessels." Chen felt ice form in her stomach. "They know. Somehow, they know what we're planning." Captain Santos stepped closer. "How is that possible?" "The council session was classified, and we've maintained communication silence. Intelligence leak, intercepted transmissions, or maybe they've encountered gamma-based weapons before," Chen said grimly. "It doesn't matter how they know. What matters is that a dispersed formation reduces the chances of cascade propagation between ships." The tactical officer looked up from his station. "Commander, if the cascade effect doesn't chain from ship to ship, we're looking at destroying maybe 20 to 30 vessels, instead of the entire fleet, which still leaves over 200 ships to attack Kepler 442, Santos added. Chen stared at the tactical display, watching the Devourer ships continue to spread their formation. They were still advancing, but now they were advancing smart. The question was whether humanity's secret weapon would still be effective enough to matter. "Dr. Watson," Chen called. "What are the odds of cascade propagation with their current formation?" "Dropping rapidly. At current spacing, maybe 15% chance of ship-to-ship cascade. But Commander, there's something else." "I'm in way. Go ahead." "The exotic matter resonance effect I mentioned, it doesn't require physical proximity. If we can maintain sustained gamma bombardment for long enough, we might be able to trigger sympathetic resonance across the entire fleet, regardless of spacing." Chen felt hope flicker in her chest. "How long would we need to maintain bombardment?" "Unknown. Could be hours. Could be days. And there's no guarantee it would work." "Commander," the communications officer interrupted. "Incoming priority transmission from Admiral Martinez." The holographic display activated, showing the Admiral's face with the Earth's moon visible through the window behind her. "Zara, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up a second Devourer fleet heading for the Sol system." Chen felt the universe narrow to a single point of focus. "How many ships?" 300 plus. "They'll arrive in 72 hours. Martinez's expression was stone. "Zara, this isn't just about Kepler 442 anymore. If these weapons don't work, Earth falls in 3 days." The transmission ended, leaving Chen staring at a blank holographic display. Around the bridge, the crew had gone silent, each person processing the implications of what they had just heard. "All ships, this is Commander Chen," she announced over the fleet communication channel. "New intelligence indicates that failure of this mission will result in direct assault on Earth within 72 hours. All personnel are advised that we are no longer conducting a rescue operation. We are conducting humanity's last stand." The acknowledgements came back from each ship in the small fleet. Voices from different species, all unified in grim determination. "Distance to deployment range?" Chen asked. 12 minutes at current velocity," the navigation officer replied. Chen activated her personal communicator. "Dr. Watson, I need final confirmation. Are these weapons going to work?" Watson's voice was steady despite the circumstances. "Commander, based on our testing and theoretical models, I believe they will be effective. How effective remains to be seen." "Good enough." Chen turned to Captain Santos. "Signal all ships to prepare for weapons deployment." "And Captain?" "Yes, Commander. If these bombs fail to stop the Devourer fleet, make sure our testimony about their effectiveness reaches Earth. The next fleet heading for Sol will know what to expect." Santos nodded grimly. "Understood." The next few minutes passed in tense silence as the small fleet approached optimal deployment range. Chen watched the Devourer ships continue their advance, their exotic matter hulls gleaming like dark stars against the void. Deployment range achieved, the tactical officer announced. Chen took a deep breath. All ships. Deploy cobalt bombs on my mark. Target coordinates are confirmed. Remember, these weapons have never been tested at full scale. Stay alert for unexpected effects. She looked around the bridge at the faces of her crew humans who had volunteered for what might be the most dangerous weapons test in galactic history. Then she looked at the alien observers. A Felixian tactical specialist, a Thorian engineer, and a Zilithian quantum physicist, all of whom had chosen to be present for this moment. For 3 billion civilians on Kepler 442, Chen said quietly. For Earth, for the galaxy. Deploy weapons. 12 dark shapes ejected from the human ships, their forms barely visible against the cosmic background. Each cobalt bomb was roughly the size of an ancient Earth automobile, but their impact would be felt across star systems. Weapons away, Captain Santos reported. Detonation in 30 seconds. Chen watched the countdown timer on her display. Around the bridge, everyone held their breath. 10 seconds to detonation. The tactical display showed the bombs approaching their target coordinates, scattered throughout the Devourer fleet's formation. 5 seconds. Chen closed her eyes. Detonation. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the view screen automatically dimmed as 12 miniature suns blazed to life among the Devourer ships. The nuclear explosions themselves were relatively small. Each bomb carried only a fraction of the destructive power of humanity's most advanced weapons. But as the initial fireballs faded, something else began to happen. Commander. Doctor. Watson's voice was tight with excitement. I'm reading massive exotic matter resonance throughout the Devourer fleet. The gamma radiation is propagating through their hull matrices exactly as predicted. On the tactical display, Chen watched the Devourer ships begin to change. Their sleek, predatory forms started to waver, like heat mirages on a summer day. Multiple hull breaches detected across the fleet, the sensor officer reported. Commander, their ships are literally falling apart. Chen opened her eyes and stared at the display. Where moments before there had been over 200 enemy vessels, now there were expanding clouds of debris. Ship after ship was experiencing catastrophic structural failure as the exotic matter in their hulls destabilized. Cascade reaction detected, Watson announced, her voice filled with awe. It's propagating across the entire fleet despite their dispersed formation. The quantum resonance is jumping between ships through. I'm not sure how it's jumping between ships. The physics shouldn't allow for this. As they watched, the largest Devourer battleship, a vessel the size of a small moon, began to buckle and twist. Its exotic matter hull, which had withstood plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes, was crumbling like sand. Then the cascade effect reached critical mass. The explosion that followed defied description. It wasn't the bright, violent explosion of conventional weapons, but something deeper and more fundamental. Reality itself seemed to ripple as the exotic matter in hundreds of ships released its stored quantum energy simultaneously. The view screen went completely white, then black, then showed colors that had no names. Emergency shields activated throughout the human fleet as waves of exotic radiation washed over their positions. When the chaos finally subsided, the tactical display showed empty space where the Devourer fleet had been. Not even debris remained. The cascade explosion had been so complete that it had converted matter directly into energy, leaving behind only expanding spheres of exotic radiation. Fleet status report, Chen requested, her voice barely above a whisper. All ships reporting minimal damage, Captain Santos replied, consulting her displays. Some radiation exposure, but within acceptable limits. Commander, the Devourer fleet is completely destroyed. Chen sank into her command chair, the weight of what they had accomplished settling over her like a heavy blanket. They had not just won a tactical victory, they had potentially changed the nature of galactic warfare forever. Dr. Watson, she called, full analysis of the cascade effect. I want to know exactly what happened and whether it can be replicated. Already working on it, Watson replied. But Commander, preliminary data suggests that the cascade effect was approximately 10,000 times more powerful than our most optimistic projections. The energy release was equivalent to a gamma-ray burst from a neutron star collision. The implications were staggering. They had not just destroyed a devourer fleet, they had created a weapon effect visible from neighboring galaxies. Communications. Open a channel to Admiral Martinez, Chen ordered. The Admiral's face appeared on the holographic display, her expression mixing relief with concern. Zara, our long-range sensors detected the explosion. Please tell me you're still alive. We're here, Chen confirmed. The cobalt bombs worked. The entire devourer fleet is destroyed. Martinez's relief was visible. What about the second fleet heading for Earth? Chen looked at Dr. Watson, who was studying her sensor readings. The scientist looked up and nodded grimly. Sarah, we need to have a conversation about scaling up production of cobalt bombs, and we need to have it fast. Martinez's expression grew serious. How many do you think we'll need? Chen thought about the 300 devourer ships racing toward Earth, about the cascade effect that had exceeded all their projections, about the revelation that humanity possessed weapons capable of threatening any exotic matter technology in the galaxy. Admiral, I think we need to consider the possibility that after today, the devourers aren't our biggest problem anymore. Martinez frowned. What do you mean? Chen looked around the bridge at the alien observers, whose various optical organs were fixed on her with expressions she couldn't read. I mean that every species in the galaxy just learned that humans can destroy entire fleets with primitive nuclear weapons. And they're going to want to know what else we're hiding. The weight of that revelation settled over the bridge crew. They had saved 3 billion lives, and potentially Earth itself. But in doing so, they had revealed that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had suspected. Commander, the Zilithian observer spoke for the first time since the explosion, its crystalline form flickering with rapid light patterns. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that will require significant adjustments to galactic political structures. Chen met the being's prismatic gaze. Are you saying humanity is now considered a threat? I am saying, the Zilithian replied carefully, that humanity is now considered an unknown variable in an equation that has been stable for millennia. The response to such variables is difficult to predict. Chen nodded slowly. They had won the battle, possibly even the war against the devourers. But in doing so, they had started something entirely new. Captain Santos, she said quietly, set course for Earth. We need to prepare for whatever comes next. As the small fleet turned toward home, Chen stared out at the empty space where the devourer fleet had been. The galaxy would never be the same. The question was whether humanity would survive the change they had set in motion. But for now, 3 billion people on Kepler 442 were alive. Earth was safe. And sometimes, that was enough. Even if it meant that tomorrow, humanity might find itself standing alone against the galaxy they had just saved.